good evening to all of you, and we shall continue our discussion on the first chapter of Karma Yoga, the karma in its effect on character. So, what karma is, we have some preliminary knowledge, idea, and what character is also most of us know. But everyone wants to have a very good character, and that's a common aspiration. Bala Manushova. আমরা ছোট ছেলেদের small young children, we bless them telling that you should become a good man or women. So to become a good man, Bala Manush, is the common aspiration of everyone. But how to become a good person? So that is the question which this Karma Yoga is dealing with. So a Bala Manushava, come on, how to become a good person, a person of character. Because ultimately the world respects men of character. And it may appear that the world is paying more, it pays more attention, obeisance to the people who have money or power. The people who have money or power, they seem to have greater hold on public's imagination. But most of the time it's all superficial and it's all fleeting. But ultimately it's the man of character who has the lasting respect of the society. So even in our day-to-day interactions, we seem to, we believe, we trust, we like interacting with people of character. A person may be very rich, or he may be highly educated, he may hold a powerful post, but still the love and respect for that person may not be in our hearts. We love and respect a person mainly for his character. Otherwise, because of his power, position and all, we may show some external obedience, external behavior, but our internally, from the heart of hearts, we only respect people of character. So how to be a man of character is a very important topic. And how to get this character, it's not that you get it by some divine grace. It's not that there is a magic formula. There is a shortcut to become a men and women of good character. There is no shortcut. There is no magic formula. And there is no, someone say, taking some medicines or taking some, uttering some formulas, mantras, tantras, doing some yajnas, doing some ceremonies. So by all these actions, you cannot become men of character. So there is only one way in which we can develop our character, and that is through by our own actions. So that is the main statement of Karma Yoga. There is only one way to be a man and woman of good character, that is by your own actions. And you are not dependent on any external person or any external situation for you to become good. Many times we give those reasons. We say due to external situation, due to the circumstances I am in, or due to the people with whom I am interacting, I have to compromise my character. But it's all just excuses. So for our character, good or bad, we alone are responsible. And how this character develops, that's what the Karma Yoga is now discussing. Last class itself, we saw that character is the sum total of impressions in our mind. That every action leaves an impression in our mind, and these impressions becomes an habit, and we repeat that actions, and it forms an habit, and the sum total of habit is our character. So the action leads to impressions, impressions leads to more actions, and the more actions become an habit, and the sum total of our habits is what we defines our character. If you call the in the Sanskrit, it is your our karma generates a samskaras, and these samskaras gives rise to vasanas, and these vasanas impel us to do or avoid some actions, and these actions once again create samskaras, samskaras generate vasanas, vasanas leads to action. So it's like a vicious cycle. So somehow we have to take control of that cycle, and the point at which we can control it is at the level of sankalpa. So the desire, the sankalpa is the will, the time when we decide to do or not to do. So that is the time when we can really control our actions. And this desire, this will is dependent on our sum total of our samskaras. So many times we say we want to have a strong will. How do we develop this willpower? So that again at the end of this lecture, Swamiji is discussing those are to develop willpower. So we have to do right actions. So that will be a topic we will discuss in later. So as of now, so character is the sum total of aggregate of tendencies, sum total of the bend of mind. And in this, both misery and happiness, good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant experiences, all of them have an important role to play. And before progressing further, just I shall briefly discuss about the constitution of our mind, because samskaras or vasanas, impression, everything, finally the receptacle is the mind. So what is the mind according to our Indian philosophy? So the most basic idea which all of us should know is the mind according to its function is divided into four parts. We have heard those words. They are called as manas, buddhi, chitta and agankara. So the manas is the seat of emotion. It is what we normally identify with our heart. The heart is the seat of emotion. It is where we see the feelings. We experience the feelings. And manas is something, it is always in a state of dilemma. We cogitate, we deliberate, we reflect. Any issue, you take up any issue, you reflect on it, you deliberate on it, and you think about it, whether to do or not to do, and what are the repercussions, whatever this the seat of emotions and feelings, and the state of indecision, when we are unable to decide what to do, whether should I do this or whether I should not do this, the state of hesitancy which we all experience in our mind, when there is the seat of conflict, to do whether to do this or not, whether this is right or whether it is wrong. So that is called as the manas. And then some immediately a portion of our mind, it takes a decision. So that is called as buddhi. So the buddhi is the deciding capacity, the reasoning capacity, and it is that which decides, which shows us the way, the path. So that is called as buddhi. And then there is another aspect of the mind. It is called as chitta. So the chitta is the seat of all the impressions. We say every action leaves an impression. These impressions, they are stored in our chitta. It is a storehouse. And if you remember in one of my previous classes, I told that these impressions of all our previous births are also stored in this chitta alone. In our mind, we have the impressions of the actions of not only this life, we have the impressions of actions of all the lives. Whatever we have done in our previous births, whatever the result is there, embedded in a very subtle form in our own mind. The mind is the seat of that. And whether now the question comes, how do you know it? Whether is there any proof? So the Raja Yoga, which you are discussing in alternate weeks. So Raja Yoga exclusively deals with this topic. So you will get an answer from there. But there are yogic practices by which we can get access to the depth of this mind, and we can come face to face with our samskaras of the even our previous births. We can even get the knowledge of our previous births. But that is the topic of Raja Yoga. And then finally, there is Agankara, or the I consciousness, the feeling of I-ness, the individuality. So the Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, and Agankara are the four aspects of the mind. For our discussion, it is the Chitta, which is the storehouse of impressions, is very relevant. And Swamiji says that every action finally has a role to play in our character. So this is one idea. Now Swamiji moves to the next topic. The next topic is the knowledge. So we have seen in the first sentence of this topic that pleasure is not the goal of man, but knowledge. So where this knowledge exists? So Swamiji says this knowledge is inherent in man. No knowledge comes from outside, it is all inside. What we say a man knows should be strictly, it should be what he discovers or what he unveils. So we say Newton discovered gravitation. So it is not that it was sitting somewhere outside him. So that knowledge it came from within. All the knowledge that the world has ever received, it has come from the human mind alone. So if you look around, whatever that we see before us in this world is the product of human mind. All the scientific knowledge, all the knowledge of different fields, the science, technology, everything. What is the source of this? The source of all knowledge is the human mind. It has come from a human mind alone. It did not come from any external factor. So this human mind is the source of all knowledge. And what we see now exhibited outside is only a fraction of the knowledge that is there within us. Inside the human mind, there are still greater potentials which we cannot imagine. 100 years from now, the world will be totally different from what it is now. Many things now we cannot imagine, which will become a reality 100 years from now. But where from that came? That also came from the same human mind. That was also within this mind alone. So Swamiji says, this mind is the storehouse of infinite knowledge. It is the storehouse of infinite power, infinite strength, infinite bliss. So that's how we define this mind, the real mind. And if we can go to that, and how does all this knowledge is produced? The external world gives the suggestion, and that suggestion works inside our mind, and then the mind gives a reaction, and we get the knowledge. So we say the apple. The Newton saw an apple falling down. He questioned himself, and that led to its theory of gravity. So the Swamiji tells, so he already had a set of knowledge in his mind. This external, whatever it may be, stimuli is just a stimulus. It made him think, and the knowledge arose out of his thinking process. So that is one idea which Swamiji want to tell, that knowledge is within. And the very good example of this is in our own times, the Albert Einstein. It was told that as a creation of a single mind, it is undoubtedly the highest intellectual achievement of humanity. I was reading in one of the books, it is told that when he published his special theory of relativity in 1905, it is one of the most extraordinary scientific papers. Why? Because not only because of its contents, but also in the manner in which it was presented. It is said that that paper had no footnotes, no citations, contained almost no mathematics, made no mention of any work that had influenced or preceded it, and acknowledged but one of his own colleague in the patent office. So just by the power of his pure thought, without any help, Albert Einstein has arrived at that special theory of relativity. In one book, it was given. So the potentials of this human mind is limitless. So all knowledge, whether it is secular or spiritual, is within us. So now, if we say a person is learning, it's not that some external input goes, but only the veil that covers his knowledge that is removed. When a teacher is teaching in the classroom, so whatever he is teaching, that goes and creates a reaction in the student's mind, and a process sets in. And because of that process, a veil that is removed, and suddenly the things become clear. Sometimes the students absorb the teachings, but the internally no reaction, so the knowledge is not generated. It remains just unaccumulated information. But assimilation can take place only when we react to that stimulus from outside things and then internalizes that knowledge. That we say suddenly, all of us we have felt. We are discussing, we are thinking about some problem, and it was not initially very clear. Everything is very hazy, and suddenly, by through our thinking process, something like a veil removes, and everything becomes very clear, and we are able to grasp that concept, and we become happy. So this is the process of acquiring knowledge. So knowledge is within. The process of acquiring knowledge is just the removing the veil of ignorance, and the external whatever that we get is only as the access is stimulus. And so this idea also is important in the pedagogy also, that a teacher role is just to remove the veils that covers the mind of the children. It's not just giving some information, conducting exams or passing. Those things are secondary thing, but the main thing is to make the student think, to kindle in them that curiosity, to know, to get that intellectual hunger going. So that how the knowledge is produced. So now the naturally a question will come: if the knowledge is infinite knowledge is within, then how can I access it? What is the technique? Is there any technique for accessing it? Yes, Swamiji tells, yes, the only way to access all this knowledge is by concentration. It is only by concentration. Concentration is the key which unlocks the infinite potential of the human mind. If you can concentrate your mind on that particular problem, the power of concentration, the power of focus will remove the veils, and the things become clear. The only way of acquiring knowledge, of manifesting this hidden perfection, is by concentration. That's the Swamiji's idea which he gives. And then in related, coming back to our original discussion, because after a brief discussion of knowledge, Swamiji again goes back to the karma. And we said that the whatever karma we do defines our character, and not only it defines our character, it defines our nature also, our inclinations, our attitudes, our subjects. So why we choose different subjects, and so these things are also determined by our karma. Why that some people are attracted towards mathematics, some are attracted towards different streams of knowledge. It's all because of the sum total of your samskaras. So that's one idea which he gives. Then he says, if you want to judge really the character of a man, then you should look not at his great performances, but rather you should look how he behaves, what he does in his most common day-to-day actions. So great occasions can rouse even the lowest of human beings, but he is really a great man whose character is great always, the same wherever he be. If you want to know the real character of a person, see how he behaves with his subordinates, with his say servants, who cannot retaliate. who are submissive by their circumstances. So you can, he may be very humble, very polite with the superiors. He may be a very gentleman in the front of society. But in the privates of his life, is he the same gentleman? Is his behavior the same? So that you observe, and then only you can judge a man's character. So under spotlight, everyone can do heroic deeds. Everyone can put a show of holiness. But in the privacy of their life, if do they maintain the same consistency of their behavior, then he is a man of character. So that is the one test for character which Swamiji tells, and which even Thakur also advocated. Sri Ramakrishna, when disciples came to him, Sri Ramakrishna used to tell, "You test me like a money changer tests his coins." A person who they will test, even nowadays the bank tellers, they used to check whether this note is original or duplicate, fake. So like that, you test me. Do not accept me. Test me in the morning. Test me in the night. Now you 24 hours you test, and then only you um, you will judge. You accept me as a real person. So that is one idea, one test of character which Swamiji tells. If you want to claim a man or woman of character, then it should be the same everywhere. It should be the great everywhere. There must be a consistency. So we should not be different persons for different people. We should not be hypocrites. And we should, that manmukh ekura, that what we feel in our heart, that we should be able to say outside also. There should not be any duplicity of character, that we are thinking something, but we are saying something other. So this is not a perfect character. This duplicity should not be there, and we should have to have maintained that high character at every times. So it is this common actions which is a test. In one of our ashramas, a monk, the monastic head, the abbot of that monastery, he wanted to check whether the new aspirants, they are meditating properly. So how will you know? Because they go to the temple and they sit with their eyes closed for 1 hour and they come back. So this 1 hour, have they really meditated, or they are only just putting up an outward show of meditation? How to know it? So he had a devised a test. He gave each one of them a potato. He asked them to peel the skin of that potato, and he asked them to bring it to him. And after that, all that new novices, they brought the peeled potato to him, and he examined closely. The head examined closely these potatoes, and finally he found selected one potato. Said, "Yes, this person has had a real meditation today." And the concerned person stood up and he was appreciated. So now other people asked this head, "How did you know by seeing this potato?" He told, "So he has removed the skin of the potato with a least loss of the flesh, and with a minimum loss of the flesh, with a very clear, with a perfect concentration, he was able to do that job. So I judge that his meditation was perfect." So what he wished to say is, if your mind is concentrated, then naturally it will reflect in your actions also. So regard as per the state of our mind, so will be the state of our action. The quality of our actions is also determined by the quality of our mind. So that way, if we can maintain our mind stable, then we can also, in whatever action that we do, that we can achieve perfection. That is another idea which Swamiji is sharing with us. And then one more warning which Swamiji tells is, every human being is like a magnet. A magnet, in the sense, a magnet attracts other iron pieces that we know. But we human beings, as a magnet, We attract either good thoughts or bad thoughts according to the predominant state of our mind. If our mind is predominantly full of evil thoughts or whatever thoughts, then corresponding thoughts from the external atmosphere will resonate with our mind. It's like that phenomenon of resonance. When the two objects in the same state of vibration, so they will also vibrate, resonate together. Similarly, our minds also, they resonate at a particular frequency. So whatever that tallies with the external world, that has a greater impact on us. So only we say the birds of the same flock, they flock together, of the same kind, birds of the same kind flock together. Means people who have similar disposition, they like to move together, they like to stay together, and the like attracts like. So all these things, because there is a warning also, and there is a benefit also, which Swamiji tells. What he is telling is the external world is full of thought vibrations. There are full of thought vibrations. So we are thinking something. We are, each one of us, we are radiating some vibration in this external world, either positive or negative. We also feel sometimes when a person enters our room, he carries with him such a heavy vibration. We don't want to remain in the same atmosphere. We move from that place. No, I cannot tolerate his presence, we tell. Why? Because something in him repels us. It is not the vibration is not in tune with our state of mind. We say our minds don't meet. So what Swamiji is telling is the world is full of good and positive and negative vibrations, and according to the state of tune of your mind, you will attract similar vibrations. If suppose you are full of good thoughts, all the good thoughts in the world also will come to you. Automatically, you will attract good people towards you. Automatically you will move away from bad people. So what happens when you interact, when you keep company with good people, what happens? Your thoughts gets reinforced. You mutually reinforce your thoughts, and the sum total is you become a good person. So only we put a great emphasis on the company. What company you keep. Satsangatve Nisangatvam, Nisangatve Nirmohatvam, Nirmohatve Jivan Mukti. Shankaracharya tells from Satsanga you can attain Mukti also. Satsangatve, but by moving with good people, slowly you will become evolved as a better and better person. Why? Because his thoughts impresses on your mind, influences your mind. Similarly, if you move with, if your mind is full of evil thoughts, if you all the time, suppose if you all the time you want to do harm to someone, then what happens is this feeling of revenge, the feeling of hate, this gets reinforced by the external world also. So automatically grows and grows and grows, and slowly you become like a magnet attracting all the anger in the external world also, and finally it affects us. It also destroys us. So Swamiji is telling that man, as it were, is attracting all the powers of the universe towards himself, and is like in the center, he is fusing them all and sending them off in a big current. So good and bad, misery and happiness, all are running towards him, clinging around him, and out of them he fashions the mighty stream of tendency called character and throws it outside. So he says, be careful of your state of mind, and your state and the company in which you keep. That has an effect on your character, that has an effect on your thinking. Yes, and then finally, we are coming to the manifestation of will. So Swamiji is telling that if you want to have a good character, first of all, you need a strong will. Unless you have a strong will, you cannot do what is right. You cannot avoid what is wrong. And if you cannot avoid what is wrong, if you cannot do what is good, naturally you cannot have good character. So a strong will presupposes a good character. and this character is manufactured by the karma. So as your karma is, so will be your will. So if you want to have a strong will, then you should have to do good karmas. So that is a very important idea which Swamiji is telling. And so in this respect, he is telling that the men whom the world adores, say like a Buddha or a Christ, whose influences last even after the birth for ages together. They are all the perfect examples of this character, of this willpower. If you want to see the perfect manifestation of willpower, then we have to look towards these characters. In them, you will find this manifestation of this willpower. And if you want to, uh, and then another idea which Swamiji is telling is, uh, we in this our karmas determine what we deserve in this life. That is another important idea which tells what we deserve, what we get in this life is finally is determined by our own karma. So that is also in one of our scriptures it is told, sukasya dukasya na kopi data paro dadati iti kubuddhi resha agam karomi iti vrit abhimana swakarma sutra gradito hi loka. So sukasya dukkasya na kopi data. So for your own good and for your own happiness, for your goodness or misery, happiness or misery, there is no other external person is the cause. You are the cause. Na kopi data. Paro dadati iti kubuddhi resha. It is only out of ignorance you blame others. That he is responsible for my happiness, he is responsible for my misery. Ultimately, if we look within, if we analyze, we will find that ultimately it all rests on us. And it's not that external things is not making us happy or miserable. It is we ourselves is making. In one example, Swamiji says, it is like two hands are required for a clap. So similarly, the externally there is something happening, internally you react. External actions you don't have any control. How the opposite person is going to react, how the situation is going to unfold, we don't have much control over them. But what we have control is our own reaction to the external happenings. That is there in our control. So that we can control. And so that we should focus on controlling. So Swamiji is telling, and ultimately whatever happens to us is determined, we alone are responsible. So we should take that responsibility for our own life. We should not blame. So that is the first step in the building of character, to take responsibility for our lives, to take responsibility for our actions, to take responsibility for our thoughts, not blaming others, not blaming other situations. And what we deserve in life is determined by our karma. We may say, suppose a father, he has a large money, say, the example, say, Ambani. Yeah, Ambani, that father Ambani, Dhrubai Ambani, he built a big empire, and when he died, he passed his empire to his two sons. Both of them got almost a equal property. So now, so after so many years, now we know where those two brothers standing. One is very highly successful. He has multiplied his the wealth which his father, which he received from his father, and he has become a very big industrialist. Whereas on the other hand, another brother who also received the same inheritance, we know how he squandered all these things and where he is now. So again, what makes the difference? So again, Swamiji tells, no one can get anything unless he earns it. So that is the eternal law. So we may sometimes think it is not so, but in the long run, we become convinced of it. A man may struggle all his life for riches, he may cheat thousands, but he finds at last that he did not deserve to become rich and his life becomes a trouble and nuisance to him. We may go on accumulating things for our physical enjoyment, but only what we earn is really ours. A fool may buy all the books in the world and they will be in his library, but he will be able to read only those that he deserves to. And this deserving is produced by karma. Our karma determines what we deserve and what we can assimilate. We are responsible for what we are, and whatever we wish ourselves to be, we have the power to make ourselves. So that's a very powerful idea which Swamiji is telling. So you may, in one of our, Swami Brahmananda Ji Maharaj was the uh, favorite disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna used to consider him as his Manasa Putra, as his son, mental son. And so he was considered to be a man of great spirituality. But after Thakur's passing away, he went to Vrindavan, and for 6 years he practiced very intense austerities, just like any other ordinary monk. So one of his brother disciples asked him, "So you are the favorite son of Sri Ramakrishna, favorite disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna has bestowed so much of his blessings on you, and why? What is the necessity for you to do all these spiritual practices just like any other ordinary sadhaka?" Then Maharaj replied, "Yes, it is true. Sri Ramakrishna had given me all his blessings. He has left me with a lot of spiritual wealth. But to make justice to it, and then to assimilate the spirituality, I need to do some work." So so whether whatever we want in life, we should deserve it. We should work ourselves. We should work to so that it deserves. Say suppose we deserve some higher post, or we deserve some higher job, a greater salary, a higher title, a powerful position in the management. So what we should do? We should not go about canvassing people and doing other shortcuts. The right way is develop your capabilities, develop your personality, develop what the job takes. So once you deserve it, then the post come to you, then the money comes to you, then everything that comes to you. So the karma yogi will first build himself. He will first develop himself. He will make himself deserve, so that he deserves the thing. Once you have that eligibility, then the things come by itself. So that's the idea which Swamiji is telling. Actually, today I shall stop here. There are a lot of some prayer commitments to me, and because of that, I could not proceed with this class further. And I would seek your permission. With your permission, we shall end this class today, and maybe in the later weeks we can continue this discussion. Today I have a lot of other preoccupations, and so that we shall start with this. And if you have any one or two questions, I can answer. I have a meeting now.
Couple of quick questions if you have. Just unmute yourself.
Just one question, Maharaj. It's not a question actually. If you could just repeat that sloka of Nirmoho, that one of Shankaracharya you said.
It is called Satsangatve Nisangatvam. From Satsanga, you will develop that Nisanga. Nisanga means you will develop Vairagya. You will get that renunciation. You will get that good impulses, good feelings. Nisangatve Nirmohatvam. And from that renunciation, from that detachment, you will become free from moga. You will free from delusions. And Nirmohatve Jivan Mukti. And when you are free from all desires, then you attain Mukti. So through Satsanga, starting with the Satsanga, you finally end up with Mukti. The two major important stages is Satsanga leads to Vairagya, and the Vairagya leads to freedom from desires, and this freedom of desires gives you mukti.
Thank you, Maharaj.